Okay, so we've got this basic pleated shape. It's actually quite an interesting shape, and I can see some possibilities for this in other models. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as it is now. So if I do want to reuse this, I don't have to remake it. I can link or append it as a library file into another model. So just a quick save as, and I'll save it as swag base. Okay, so now I've got a copy of that, and you know, if I mess up or I want to use this in a different way, I've got a copy of this. Okay, now I want to talk a little about proportional editing. We haven't used this before, and it's actually quite a good tool. Getting all tongue-tied this morning. Anyway, let's go into front orthographic view. It's actually right ortho because of the way I modelled it, but I want to look at the model front on. And let me go into edit mode. Okay, I'll deselect everything. Now, proportional editing is this little button here, and if we enable it, we get a second button that pops up, which gives us some options. Now, what proportional editing does is it also moves the connected vertices to the one you got selected, so you get nice smooth kind of movements with it. So if I'll explain this, if I select this first vertex and I've got my proportional edited on, if I go to move it, okay, so I'll press the M key for move and nothing's happening. Not the M key, G, and if I go to grab it, okay, so press the G key to move, you see I've got this white circle. Now sometimes you'll do this and you won't see the circle. It's because it's too big and it's off the screen. Okay, so just to reduce it, you scroll your mouse wheel up, and to increase it, you scroll your mouse wheel downwards. Okay, now what this circle is a circle of influence. Okay, so what it means is, if you imagine the center of that circle in the center of the vertex you got selected, all the other vertices within that circle will move as well, like that. Okay, now you've got different options. That one was the smooth. Supposing I was to use linear and I was to grab again, you can see it's not quite so rounded, it's a lot straighter. Sharp. Okay, doesn't really show too well on one vertex, so let me try this on a set. Okay, now if I was to grab this, that would be sharp. That would be smooth. Okay. Now, the direction in which things get smoothed out, okay, is dependent on the 3D cursor. Okay, so for example, if I was to scale this set of vertices down, so I press my S key and I scale, it's going in towards the 3D cursor. Okay, however, if my 3D cursor was up here and I was to scale S, you can see it always heads towards the 3D cursor. Okay, and now you can also see the beginnings of how I'm going to shape the curve of the swag. Okay, now I'm just going to put my 3D cursor up here. Okay, the reason for that is because I want this particular swag to curve downwards. I want the top to remain pretty much where it is. Okay, and I want the bottoms to kind of come up into it. Right, so as I said before, I see some interesting possibilities for this kind of shape, which is why I saved it. So for example, if I was to select the middle and the end as well, and I was to scale on the Z or the Z axis, I can get this kind of shape. Okay, if I select some more, kind of going in the middle of those two sections, I do it again, I'm starting to get this Roman blind kind of shape. Now I can while I'm scaling, I can move my circle of influence to kind of get the effect I'm looking for. Okay. Now if I was to change that from smooth to, let's try root. S on Z. You can see we're getting different kind of shapes. So it takes a little bit of playing around with. Anyway, let me deselect all, because all I want to do is pull up my ends. Okay. Now I've got my 3D cursor above the model, so it's going to pull upwards. I'm just going to select the ends. Okay. I'm going to use the smooth fall off. Okay. So now I can go SZ. I'll increase this circle slightly and I'll start to pull it upwards. Okay. Now that kind of shape might be what you're looking for. I was looking for something more like that. And just find something where you're kind of happy with it. Okay. The more I increase, the more it bunches together. So somewhere about there, I think. Okay. So now we've got the kind of the droop of the swag. And that's pretty much what I was looking for. Okay, I'm just going to go into side view now, because I kind of remember that this was offset at an angle when we draped it, but I'm just checking it now. It's not looking too bad. I could probably rotate it back on the y-axis. Well, now you see I've got the circle of influence there. I need to turn off my proportional editing. So I could rotate it back on the y-axis by -5 degrees, and that's gone completely the other way. The reason for that is because, again, we've got our 3D cursor selected down here, not the medium point. Okay, so let me Control Z backwards. Okay, I'll change our pivot point, which we want as a medium point, down here. Rotate Y -5. Okay. So now if we look at this, we're probably in a better shape to, or a better position to make the rest of our adjustments. Okay. Now, once again, I like this. I can see me using this somewhere else. So I'm going to go ahead and save this out as swag group. Okay, so now I've got two files saved that I can just instantly recall and start work on. Now the other thing we wanted with this is we wanted it to curve around, basically around the z-axis. We wanted a curve on the z-axis. So let me go into a top view here. Okay, so we've got this model. Okay, now there is another modifier we can use, which is called the curve modifier. Okay, so let's go ahead and get there. Now what a curve modifier does is it will curve around an object, but that object has to be another curve, right? So we need to add a curve, so Shift A to add. Now I've tried a few of these, and to be honest, the most predictable results comes from the Bezier curve. So I'm going to add a Bezier curve. I'm just going to grab it and move it over here a bit, somewhere about there. I'm going to rotate it so it's on the right axis, and then I'm going to edit it with my tab key. Okay, and I'm going to make a half circle here. So I'm just going to grab this, move this about there, grab this one, move it 1, 2, 3, about there, rotate it around, and I'm just going to start to form a half circle with this Bezier. Just bear with me while I do this. So somewhere about there, that's a half circle. Okay, you can do this a lot more accurately. I'm just doing this quickly for the sake of the tutorial. Okay, so if I go back into edit mode, or object mode rather, my top view, I've now got my Bezier circle and I've got my object. So let me select my object again. We asked for Modifier. Now it's asking for an object to deform with, okay, which is our Bezier circle. So if I come down, the drop down list will contain all the curves in the scene, and this one was a Bezier curve that I just made. Okay, now you've got different transformation axis. X seems to work here. Okay, now it's way up here and out of the way, so let me just grab this and kind of move it around to where I want it, which will be somewhere about there. Okay, so let's have a look at this. We've got our drop down and we've got our curve. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I'll drag it up on the X just to, and just have a look around and see if there's any adjustments I want to make. I'm going to make it fit that curve a bit better just by grabbing it and moving it, and that's probably pretty good about there. Okay, I'm going to apply that modifier. Right, I'm going to move this back towards the center again. I'm just going to delete my curve because I'm finished with it. Okay, got my model, my object here. I've also got a UV that I already created. Okay, so if I go into edit mode here, you can see my UV hasn't changed because I created it before I moved any geometry. Okay, now I'm good now to go and actually bake out an AO map. So I'll come down here to bake. I want ambient occlusion. Let's go ahead and bake that and see what happens. Okay, now you see I've baked this actually pretty good looking ambient occlusion map. It's looking pretty good, and it seems to be running top to bottom that way. Now I can work with that, but supposing you wanted it run top to bottom, from top to bottom, okay, we can easily do this. So let's go into full edit mode and make sure we got all our vertices selected on the UV map. All we need to do is rotate with the R key. Okay, and we can rotate it that way, and we need to rotate it 90 degrees. Okay, now you can see if we look at our model, the texture's gone sideways. Okay, so all we do is bake that out again. Okay, so now it's looking correct again. Map is in the orientation that we can work with. You can export this into Photoshop or GIMP and add and blend your textures to it, and this is ready for saving and export into Second Life.